Good afternoon. My name is Lene Palmisano, and I'm the Chair of Committee of the Whole. I'm going to call to order our regular committee meeting for Tuesday, September 19th. We have a long agenda, and for those that are watching remotely, we have a number of people in the room here. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll and verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Rainville.
Present.
Vita.
Present.
Ellison.
Here.
Osman. He's not here. Goodman. Present. President Jenkins.
Present.
Chugtai.
Present.
Koski.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Vice Chair Chavez.
Present.
Chair Palmisano.
Present.
We have 12 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. Colleagues, as you can see, we have a full agenda with several big items today. I'd like to pull up item 6, and for those of us in the audience who are here for item 6, which is related to the proposed co-location of the 1st and 3rd police precincts at the Century Plaza building, which you'll recall was referred back from the council meeting in the last cycle to this committee. Our last formal action on this matter was to authorize the location of the 1st police precinct at Century Plaza, the 1st precinct. That action is moving forward. The more recent proposal to co-locate the 3rd precinct at the same site has generated a lot of concern about timeline, costs, pros and cons of that approach in comparison to the city's long-term vision for the future with respect to precincts and safety centers or hubs that might be created and might be operated in a holistic manner that would best serve the needs of our community. There are a lot of issues surrounding the 3rd precinct, and we are in the midst of a number of briefings and discussions, and we are clearly not in a position to resolve those today. After completing a series of briefings for council members since our last council meeting, I think what is abundantly clear is that the majority of this body is not ready to advance a proposal that will garner majority support. There are still many questions. While I appreciate that the mayor wishes the council to focus on the options that have been presented, I think today we can reach at least one decision point. That is, we can remove the co-location proposal at Century Plaza and consider the remaining options. In considering those remaining options, we need to consider the immediate needs of the officers, the needs and priorities of our communities, and the long-term vision we have for the future of community safety. Unless there are any objections from my colleagues, I propose that we postpone consideration of any actions related to the 3rd precinct today, affirm our prior action to locate the 1st precinct at Century Plaza, and prepare for the fulsome discussion about other options that make the best sense, both from a practical, immediate standpoint, as well as the financial investments that will be required, the overall timeline, and the impact on police operations. Those are all important considerations, and we shouldn't feel rushed into making quick decisions on these significant matters. If any of my colleagues disagree, I will reframe my intention as a motion to be considered by the body. I'd like to get this item concluded so the committee can focus its attention on the rest of our agenda today, which is large and has a lot of other important discussions. So again, we have serious issues to consider in deciding how we address the short-term and the long-term needs of the 3rd police precinct, and we will address them. But I do not believe we should rush them today in order to meet an arbitrary timeline. And I also would say that I think Councilmember Chugtai in the last council meeting was absolutely right after getting 2 briefings that just concluded even so much as 10 minutes ago that she didn't think we would be in this position to be able to make a decision today. Are there any objections from colleagues about my proposal? Mine is not up, but I see Councilmember Wansley in queue and Council President Jenkins in queue.
Council Vice President, mine was just about amending the agenda, so once we're done with this, I'll get back in queue.
Thank you. Council President Jenkins.
Yeah, so just for clarity, you have made a motion?
I could reframe this as a motion if you would like me to do so, and we could take a vote on it if there are objections from my colleagues about this proposal. But this is how I This is how I have heard the conversations that have been going on. This is where I think we're ready to act, and I know we are in an urgent position to need to know how we don't delay the relocation of the first precinct while we continue to have these conversations about the third.
Yeah, I'm really confused. I don't think I've been a part of any of these broad conversations that have been going on, and the statement that you read indicates that there has been consensus built, and I'm not sure where that consensus was determined or how it was determined. I fully believe that we need to come to some kind of resolution around the third precinct for our staff who are working in unsuitable conditions now, for our residents who have been feeling like they have been without a third precinct for the past 3 years. We've been having this conversation. We talked to community, we engaged our community. They offered us a site to go back to the third precinct. We determined that we would come up with a third solution in order to have that conversation about where the third precinct is. I was under the impression that we unanimously made that decision. And so I'm really confused by this proposal that's being brought forward today.
Thank you. Council President, we applaud your leadership, and that was a unanimous action, which was to explore a third way, to explore not relocating a third precinct at Lake and Hiawatha, not choosing the second location where we did community engagement of 26th and Hiawatha, but to take a look and examine this third way. As we came and learned more details about the third precinct's co-location with the first precinct and what those costs and timeline would entail, that's when things started to get a lot broader. I don't think there is no broad consensus. I have not spoken with all of you at all, but from the briefings as I understand them, from the conversations I have had individually with other council members, I think as far as we will be able to get to today in this item number 6, which is about the third precinct, would be to make sure that we ensure that the first precinct doesn't fall off of a timeline of relocation. So I will go ahead and make this motion, and then I see there are other people in queue also wanting to speak. I move to reaffirm the council's prior decision to locate the first police precinct at Century Plaza and to postpone further consideration of the existing options related to the location of the third police precinct. I would need a second.
Second.
Thank you, and I see others in queue. Councilmember Goodman.
Well, I'm reluctant to weigh in about much of this, but I will say this. 3 floors, 200 parking spaces, 10 years, $30 million is not something I'm going to vote for. And I think there's a lot of unanimity around that. Everyone can shake their head so Council President Jenkins can see there's unanimity surrounding that. And let's move on from that option. Because the truth of the matter is, we're holding up an owner of a building from making decisions about his plans moving forward, and we are even more importantly holding up building out the first precinct. And so I want to move on from the idea that we unanimously voted to get information about, and now we have the information. I was in a briefing with 5 other council members that was not a quorum situation, and there was only one even remotely interested, and it was quite a cross-section of council members in this meeting. So we have a long agenda. I hope we're not going to debate this endlessly. I put my name in to try to respond to Council President Jenkins' concern that we're not moving forward at all. What we're saying is we're not moving forward with the first precinct location and co-location, because it wasn't a proposal about co-location. Co-location means sharing of all of the things to bring down the price. This was like building 2 precincts in one building. And let me repeat, 2 floors, well, actually, and then a third we didn't even need, a couple hundred extra parking spots, $30 million, 10-year term, none of those deal points were interesting to me. So let's move on.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just really appreciate the motion and agree with your sentiment around Council President Jenkins. I mean, I applaud her for bringing forward a really creative solution and had the full support of the council to explore it. I thought it made sense to explore it. And we've got the numbers back. We've got the full picture now. And like Councilmember Goodman, I do not support $30 million, 10 years, zero community engagement, by the way, around this. And it's supposed to be a temporary solution. Well, what we need is officers back in the 3rd precinct. We need to identify a location there. Even just in the last week, I was able to identify another site. Not saying that should be the site. I'm saying I was able to identify another site that can work as well. So we've got multiple options, but none of that negates the need for a real public process around what the precinct should look like and generally where it should be located in the community and all of the other work that we've already discussed that I'm glad to see, for instance, our chief moving forward with in terms of his engagement sessions. And I think this work is not something that needs to take a year. This is something that can happen over the coming months, and we can make a ton of progress on that. And for officers who are currently operating out of a temporary location, they deserve to have the upgrades, updates to that space so that it is more functional for them and is able to better meet their needs. And we also need to be moving forward and have that, I think, pressure on us as a body that the city needs the pressure on it in order to continue working towards a permanent home in the 3rd precinct. So thank you for the motion. And I want to thank Council President again for bringing forward this. And that's what we need, frankly, on this and other issues is more creative ideas, more willingness to think outside the box, try to bring things forward. And you know what? We explore them, and not every one of them we're going to move forward with, but we need more of that. So I really applaud that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellison, did you take yourself out of queue? Okay. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on this motion.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley.
Aye.
Rainville.
Aye.
Vital.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Osman is absent. Goodman.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Abstain.
Chugtai.
Aye.
Kosky.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chavez.
Aye.
Chair Palmisano.
Aye.
We have 11 ayes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. That item carries, and that's as far as we're going to be able to go today on item number 6. So coming back to the order of the published agenda today, in addition to our reports from committees that have met this cycle, there's also a proposed walk-on from Councilmember Wansley related to a gift acceptance. Councilmember Wansley, did you want to briefly introduce that item?
Yes, thank you, Council Vice President. I would like to make the motion to amend the agenda to include this gift acceptance. We weren't able to get it to POGO because One Fair Wage just informed me about this opportunity to speak to Chicago council members about their One Fair Wage proposal, and also recognizing that Minneapolis has been a One Fair Wage city for several years now and have not practiced a tip credit for quite some time. Being able to speak very favorable about why Chicago should move forward. So we just got informed of that this week. So we was advised by the clerks to bring this gift acceptance to Cal in light of not being able to get it through to POGO prior to agenda setting. So that's the context for it, and I'm motion to add it to the agenda, preferably under consent.
Thank you. I'll second that. So the agenda will be amended to add this matter as a discussion item or as a consent item on our agenda?
Madam President,
I'm sorry, as a consent item on our agenda. I'm not seeing any further discussion on this, so on the motion to amend the agenda and approve this item on consent, along with the Minnesota Ballpark Authority appointment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries, and the agenda with the amended motion for this gift acceptance as well as the Minnesota Ballpark Authority appointment is approved. We'll begin with our, well, I apologize. We've done that now. We'll start with our Truth and Reconciliation update. Clerk, am I in the right place? Do we want to talk about?
There's a receive and file item,
Right.
which unless there's any questions, can just be directed to receive and file.
Right, so item number 2 is the 2023 contract for awards or amendments in the federal grants report. Are there any questions on that part of this agenda? I'm not seeing any, so we'll go ahead and receive and file that item. Our next item is the Truth and Reconciliation update. This relates to a proposed high-level overview of an implementation plan for truth and reconciliation, including deliverables, action items, and metrics of success through December of 2023. I believe Robert Sayers from the Department of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging is starting off that presentation. Welcome, Mr. Sayers.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Palmisano, President Jenkins, and Committee of the Whole. I actually have a quick introduction I would like to make and give a warm welcome to our new Director of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, Prince Corbett. He's in the space with us today, but I wanted to introduce him. And I'm going to be introducing Malaysia Abdi, who is going to do our presentation on Truth and Reconciliation today. So I welcome Malaysia Abdi, who's the Program Manager for Truth and Reconciliation, and Donis Chosa, who's also one of our Program Managers for Truth and Reconciliation, will also be assisting with the presentation.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Vice President Palmisano, committee members, and our beautiful Minneapolis residents. My name is Malaysia Abdi, and I'm with Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, where I serve as one of 2 Truth and Reconciliation Program Managers. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a young Black woman with long black hair, and I'm wearing a long sleeve red dress. With the help of my colleague, Donis Chosa, I'm here to present the legislative directive that was requested regarding the progress of the Truth and Reconciliation Resolution. We are scheduled to return to this committee where we hope to establish informed commitments to carry Truth and Reconciliation to fruition. Once again, thank you for having us, and may we turn the page to the next chapter together. I would like to pay homage and extend my gratitude to the Truth and Reconciliation Work Group, as language throughout this presentation derives directly from the 17-page recommendations they created. It is truly an honor to represent the collective genius of this work group. Before we delve into the progress we made and future step towards a reconciliation process, it's essential to understand how we got here. In October 2020, the City Council unanimously passed a groundbreaking resolution. This resolution called for the establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Work Group. Their mandate was to explore the formation of a Truth and Reconciliation process within our city, with a particular focus on creating a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Fast forward to June 2021, the work group presented a significant update to this council. They came forward with recommendations that touched upon several critical elements of a Truth and Reconciliation process in Minneapolis. I will share a high-level overview of the recommendations on the next slide. Components of the recommendation included, but were not limited to, creating identity definitions and a focus for the process. The work group examined the experiences of American Indians and Black African descendants. They drew from the narratives of each group's historical experiences nationally, within Minnesota, and in Minneapolis. In doing so, definitions were created for each group. Black African descendants are defined as people whose ancestors were brought to North America from Africa under the duress of enslavement before 1865. As people, we have suffered physical, psychological, civil, and social harm over 400 years through policies that harm our wealth and our well-being. Yet still, we want to know who will pay reparations on my soul. as Jill Scott's Her Own Title song reminds us. For American Indians, the city of Minneapolis sits on the land claimed by the U.S. under an unratified treaty with Dakota communities. Many people are unaware that Indigenous people still exist, leading to biases in various institutions, including the court and other government bodies. The term American Indian is tied to the federal law and recognition of tribal nations' sovereign status, but it doesn't capture their rich history, spiritual significance, or the deep connection to this land. This term carries a complex history of misidentification, marginalization, and erasure by federal government. Secondly, vision statements for the process. The work group believes that it is the city's responsibility to establish policies, practices, and procedures across the city that produce equitable outcomes for American Indians and Black African descendants. The work group created 10 vision statements to envision a city where we share authority on decision-making pertaining to the allocations for resources by and for African Americans and American Indian communities. Also with the destruction of the creation of ordinances that were created by the city and enforced by the police that are discriminatory and violent against Black African descendants and American Indians. Thirdly, how to implement an authentic truth and reconciliation process. I will go into greater detail about this later in the presentation. Also, measuring progress. The work group will know that progress towards the vision is taking place based on redress and reparations on the account of harm committed against American Indians and Black African descendants, as well as the reduction of disparities and inequities that exist because of this harm. It is only when these things are in place that reconciliation can ever be possible. Evaluation and other reporting mechanisms will be needed to establish a baseline to measure the city's progress on meeting these things over time. Lastly, membership. Because of the recommendation is that the city's Minneapolis Truth and Reconciliation Commission fully address the complexities of structural racism, it is anticipated that this work takes 7+ years. The work group members also strongly recommend that the work group and the city council members appoint the commissioners and that the selected commissioners are compensated for their appointment. During their time together, the work group explored 3 potential frameworks regarding the city's role in the process. The recommendations detailed the merits and detriments of 2 broad options: the city convening and governing the commission, and an outside organization being hired to govern the commission. The work group also emphasized the need to consider a hybrid option. To provide further context, I'll provide a few merits and detriments of the 2 broader options. Although the city convening and governing the commission will allow for a stronger position for the commission to wield the city's power in implementing changes, a detriment is that the enterprise will choose to do the absolute minimum to meet any statutory requirements. Secondly, outside groups will not have the power to have the city change, therefore it will require additional work to ensure the community trusts the city-governed process. The work group felt hiring an organization to govern the commission is the best opportunity to engender trust from the community, which will require the city to transfer some level of authority to the commission to compel the city to be responsible and accountable. No further discussions were made regarding the hybrid option. The work group was unable to reach a consensus on a singular vision for the city's role prior to the presentation back at the council. Therefore, this will require further conversations with you all. I would like to provide a high-level overview of the recommended essential practices that are vital to an authentic truth and reconciliation process. These practices have been carefully designed to ensure a comprehensive and effective approach to addressing historical injustices and fostering healing and reconciliation within our community. First, to create a platform for healing. The reconciliation process serves as a platform for the American Indian and Black African descendant communities to openly share their experiences and narratives surrounding traumatic harm. It provides a safe and respectful environment where these communities can voice their stories, which are often marginalized or silenced. Acknowledging harm and accountability. Central to this process is the city's public recognition of past harms. This recognition goes beyond mere acknowledgement and includes a formal and public apology. Moreover, it entails the development of a concrete plan that allocates dedicated financial resources to address historical injustices. This plan also incorporates explicitly stated performance accountability measures to ensure that leadership shifts occur and the harm is not repeated. It represents a public covenant by changed leadership to uphold their commitment to rectifying past harms. Lastly, involving perpetrators and institutions. A hallmark of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is the inclusion of perpetrators of harm, institutions, and individuals in positions of power. These stakeholders must actively participate in the truth-telling process. Furthermore, they are expected to commit to reading and making a public statement regarding the findings of the Commission. This ensures that those responsible for past injustices are held accountable, and their role in the process of reconciliation is both meaningful and transparent. These essential practices represent a commitment to addressing historical injustices and promoting reconciliation within our community. They lay the foundation for healing, understanding, and transformation, fostering a more just and united city for all. The overall goal of the resolution is to address the harms that have perpetuated racial disparities by implementing solutions that prioritize Black African descendants and American Indians. The Commission will interview perpetrators and victims to understand the harm inflicted by the Minneapolis city government against Black African descendants and American Indian communities, aiming to facilitate reconciliation. This may involve policy and budgetary recommendations, public apologies, and commitments to prevent future harm. The final report will be submitted to the mayor and the city council. It is recommended by the work group that the Minneapolis Commission focuses on the experiences of Black African descendants and American Indians, and to adhere to the essential practices outlined in the 17-page recommendation. This is a nonpartisan commitment to justice, accountability, and healing. We urge this enterprise to take this process seriously without shortcuts or political interference. Committing to this process both financially and politically will enable our city to collectively chart a path forward, fostering ownership, belonging, and civic engagement. Vice President Palmisano and committee members, up until this point, we have provided you with a comprehensive overview of the recommendations crafted by the work group over the course of 8 months. These recommendations serve as a foundational framework with reflective, extensive research, dialogue, and collective wisdom. So I would like to thank the work group for the contributions to this work. Now, as we transition to the next phase of our presentation, we will share the proposed recommendations that have been shaped and refined over the course of a year and reflect countless points of feedback. I will walk through our timeline that outlines key milestones. In September, we will kick it off with launching 3 requests for proposals. These requests for proposals will be our call for expertise in the fields of reconciliation, data analysts, and storytelling. Moving on to November 2023, we will conduct a series of focus groups. This step is vital as it will help us gauge our residents' awareness and understanding of historical harms and a truth and reconciliation process. By December of 2023, we will have concluded this phase. It is during this time that we will evaluate the effectiveness of our action plan. The data and feedback we collect throughout this process will be instrumental in shaping our actions for the year 2024. In spring of 2024, our focus will shift towards conducting interviews and onboarding new commissioners. As we move into the summers from 2024 to 2027, this will be the heart of the work. This phase is pivotal, as it is when the commission will convene and receive testimonies from residents. These stories, experiences, and perspectives will form the final report. Approaching the summer of 2028, the commission will work diligently to develop a presentation of their final report to the City Council. This presentation will represent years of collected testimonies and recommendations for redress. Lastly, it is important to note that the commission's work is subject to dissolution in 2028. This dissolution is undertaken with the understanding that the City Council may need to revisit the Commission's duration and implement an accountability plan. In our collective journey towards reconciliation, investments in capacity building and communications will be crucial for the success of this resolution. These partnerships are not merely an expense, they are morally imperative and strategic for 5 distinct reasons. First, expertise and credibility. Reconciliation and truth-telling require a profound understanding of historical contexts, cultural nuances, and trauma-informed approaches. External organizations bring an impartial outsider perspective, ensuring message carriers receive training from subject matter experts to facilitate difficult and triggering conversations. Secondly, resource efficiency. While our internal staff are committed to this process, we must recognize the unparalleled value that an external organization brings. Building equivalent expertise in-house would be resource extensive and time-consuming. Leveraging external expertise allows us to maximize the impact of our resources while benefiting from established best practices, ensuring efficient use of taxpayer funds. Community resilience. Message carriers, often community leaders, elders, and youth, possess the trust and credibility needed to engage residents in discussions about our painful history and a path towards reconciliation. Trust is a precious commodity, and message carriers serve as a force multiplier. Equipping them with the necessary training ensures our community leads this transformational process, fostering authenticity and cultural sensitivity. To do any less would be a disservice to our residents and a missed opportunity to harness the power of our community's most trusted voices. Thirdly, data-driven accountability. Investing in data analysts supports our staff's development, ensures greater engagement, retention of training materials, and ultimately success. Assessing staff's understanding of racism and racial equity provides insight for resource allocation, targeted interventions, and systemic progress, tracking progress. Lastly, narrative change. Our city's division demands dismantling divisive narratives. A storytelling and narrative change partner will craft narratives that resonate with all residents, fostering unity and empathy by finding shared truths. This investment supports a continuous communication campaign that builds transparency and trust over the long term. In conclusion, these strategic partnerships represent the required investment in expertise, community resilience, data-driven decision-making, and narrative change. The rationale for these partnerships stems from the essential practices recommended by the work group and is responsive to the state of our city and resident needs. They are the keystone of our mission to achieve justice, healing, and good governance for the benefit of all residents in our city. The retention of dedicated Truth and Reconciliation Program managers is a strategic investment in guiding our city through this process. These managers will ensure that the Commission's efforts are methodical, impactful, and reflect our shared vision. The retention of program managers showcases our commitment to the Commission's success beyond political cycles, instilling confidence within our residents. However, the success of this resolution will solely depend on the enterprise's continued financial investment and political will. We urge this council to take a personal and professional interest in reconciliation and in racial equity, inclusion, and belonging. We will transition to discuss a brief overview of our goals, deliverables, outcomes, and metrics for success in 2023. At the core of this work lies a critical component, capacity building. As stated by the work group, for the first time in history, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission will address two distinct communities, Black African descendants and American Indians. Cross-cultural learning will create dynamic learning spaces for histories to be recognized, building power within and across communities. This pillar is paramount in advancing a shared understanding of a reconciliation process, their profound impact, and the integral role of stakeholders in addressing historical harms. By building capacity will level the playing field, allowing stakeholders to engage in the process on equal footing. Without a doubt, increasing capacity contributes to the enduring success of this resolution. Through skill building and knowledge sharing, we build a foundation of resilience and unity, safeguarding our community against future injustices. Therefore, increasing capacity is an investment in our service providers and a step towards healing and progress. Our second goal is to assess understanding with city staff. The fundamental purpose of a reconciliation process is to address historical injustices, not only throughout the city of Minneapolis, but within their internal enterprise. Transparency is the cornerstone to trust in government. As you all may know, on July 17th, 2023, Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging and the Health Department administered an enterprise-wide racial equity survey. The survey was intended to provide a data-driven approach for informed recommendations and departmental work to embed racial equity across the enterprise. We have received close to 1,764 responses, and based on some of the responses, it is evident that this enterprise has deep-rooted work to do to rectify past and current wrongs. Establishing a shared understanding with residents. The success of this process hinges on the active involvement and support of our residents. Establishing a shared understanding with residents is fundamental to engagement and the process. Through focus groups, we create access points for residents to actively participate, to influence the process, and to share their stories with dignity. Lastly, collecting feedback. This process must be rooted in the unique needs and perspectives of Minneapolis residents. Collecting resident feedback ensures that our approach is community-led. Creating a safe space for residents to provide input fosters inclusivity and belonging, ensuring that those who have been most harmed are heard and respected. Feedback from our residents, is instrumental in shaping an effective reconciliation process that resonates with residents and is reflected in their lived experiences. This will assist with developing new storytelling strategies that will enable us to challenge dominant narratives to promote a more accurate understanding of our shared history. The 2023 budget allocations is not just appropriate, it exemplifies a strategic investment in the launch of a reconciliation process that demands sustained dedication. Each line item within the budget serves a distinct purpose, refining the process's scope and enhancing capacity both within our organization and externally. Given the estimated 7-year timeline for this process, communication efforts take precedent as top priority. We recognize the immense responsibility we bear as stewards of public funds. By tying our financial investments directly to outcomes, we can ensure that the funds are utilized in a manner that aligns with our commitment to accountability and transparency. We will closely monitor the progress in pursuit of the desired outcomes while proactively mitigating potential harms and adhering to the procurement process. These allocations are purposely structured to ensure that we possess the expertise and engagement to employ a data-driven approach. It is important to recognize that these figures remain adaptable and responsive to evolving needs throughout the year. This budget is a solemn pledge to see this process through, and if I may, I would like to share a quote from Desmond Tutu. "Truth and reconciliation is never cheap, for it is based on forgiveness, which is costly. Forgiveness, in turn, depends on the repentance, which has to be based on the acknowledgement of what was done wrong, and therefore on the disclosure of truth. You cannot forgive what you do not know." Vice President Palmisano and committee members, I want to express my deepest gratitude for your time, commitment, and engagement in this important conversation about truth and reconciliation. As leaders of our city, you hold the power to guide us towards a future that honors the lived experiences of Black African descendants and American Indian communities, and to repair the harm caused by this enterprise. In the spirit of reconciliation, I encourage each of you to reflect on what this enterprise is truly willing to reconcile. Let us be brave enough to face our shared history and work together to heal the wounds that still linger. Let us lead with openness, curiosity, and integrity, setting an example for all residents to follow. We have reached out to each office to offer individual meetings to provide an opportunity for you to seek clarity and ask questions. Together, we have the power to make an impact on our city that could be revolutionary. Minneapolis has been a global leader for racial reckoning, so why stop now? Let us embark on this path with courage, determination, and compassion, knowing that the legacy we create today will shape the future of our city for generations to come. As I reflect on my time in this position, I have been pushed in ways I couldn't imagine. I trust that each of you will make the right decision, and I stand here to ask you to not let fear and political dynamics interfere with your ability to honor those who have been harmed. Last, but certainly not least, thank you to the members of the Truth and Reconciliation Work Group for their vulnerability and for trusting us to lead this work. That completes our presentation, and we will be happy to respond to any questions the committee may have with the help of my colleague, Donis Chosa.
Thank you for that. Donis, do you have more to say, or are you?
No, just questions. Thank you.
Great.
Great job. That was really good.
Thank you for this work. I think we're all ready for it. Council President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do want to say thank you to Ms. Abdi and Ms. Chosa for that great presentation. I am thrilled to see this presentation as the author of the original ordinance that created this resolution, I'm sorry, that created this work group and sat through each and every one of those meetings for 8 months because our society, our city, this enterprise has deep systemic racism at its core. And that is the work that we have to root out as a community. And we can't, as you so eloquently stated in your presentation, we can't apologize for what we don't know, right? So we have to have the truth. And, you know, one thing that there is truth and there is reconciliation, but in between that, there has to be some recompense before we can reconcile. And so that is inherent in a truth and reconciliation process, though I know our neighbors in St. Paul have explicitly stated that they are creating a, and I'm sorry, my brain is maybe a little foggy right now, but they are creating a, somebody help me with the word, a reparations committee. Thank you, Prince. I appreciate that, Mr. Corbett, Director Corbett. And so as we think about these commissioners, as we go through this process, I hope that we are considering reparations as a path to reconciliation. And I look forward to our individual meeting. I know my team is working to schedule that, as well as being directly involved in the work moving forward to the extent that my capacity allows. So thank you both for this presentation. And, you know, even more directly, thank you for involving yourselves in this work as African American, as Native Americans. We're not only in leading this work, but we have been directly impacted by these systems of oppression and racism. And so to step into that work with those experiences is a challenge that must be recognized and understood as well. So thank you for being willing to step into this space and help to lead this process while still dealing with the oppressive systemic racism that is the United States of America. So with that, I'll cede my time.
Thank you. Councilmember Wansley?
Thank you, Chair Palmisano. Just a couple of quick questions. In terms of the message carriers, just knowing we had something similar in the comms department called influencers that received a lot of criticism, but had the same idea of, and granted, it was tied towards the Derek Chauvin trial, I believe, but the idea that we would have credible community leaders come out and share and host meetings to make sure information was being shared accurately. And again, knowing that the city of Minneapolis has very little trust right now in the public, so let's, work with those who do. So much pushback on that, though, of saying putting the city, basically using folks in the community who do have credibility because they show up for their neighbors in an authentic way, using them as shields. So I'm interested in knowing, are there some intentional thought processes that you all as program managers or our EIB have considered in making sure we're not setting up message carriers in kind of a similar predicament that the quote unquote influencers experience via the comms communications department kind of rollout?
Yeah, thank you for that, acknowledging that. And that's something definitely that we discussed quite a bit, is making sure that we're not, just getting information from the community. But what we really want to do is really ensure that we're using their voices so that it can help us really inform that commission and what the residents believe will be beneficial for them when it comes to creating a commission. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I would just like to add thank you for mentioning that, and we'll be sure to look at how things have happened in the past just to make sure that they don't happen in the future. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councilmember.
And also, I would just flag that having a very open and transparent selection process for the message carriers, because I also believe with the influencers process, it was not a democratic process, but more so hand-selected community leaders that everyone has their own, reputations out in the community. So just making sure that there is a democratic and transparent process in which carriers are being selected. My next question, and this might actually be more relevant for our interim COO, but you mentioned the building a more anti-racist Minneapolis employee survey that was carried out over the summer. I don't believe this body has received any follow-up or information about the results from that survey. Do you all know if it's finalized? It sounds like there has been some data assessment points that you referenced from the report. And it seems like it would be very helpful for this body to also be able to maybe get a receive and file of that report. So we can also be cognizant and aware of like some of those specific trends.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Councilmember Wansley, that's correct. The survey has happened. We are gathering and collecting data. We did get a really strong response with 1,700 folks responding. And things are all over the board. However, we want, before we report out on it, we are pulling data from that. And we definitely have some things to address across the enterprise with different leadership across the enterprise. And we want to kind of dissect things via department because it might be very reflective of a number of things that need to be addressed.
Do you have a timeline in mind in which that report will be shared with the body?
They are currently going through all of the responses, a number of which that, again, are on polar opposite ends of response. For the most part, we had a very, very positive feedback and response from the employees across the enterprise, a number of which that really supported the survey happening, but we also have a number of employees across the enterprise that were on the polar opposite end and wanting to be pulled off of the all-employee email lists and everything. So we will have some interesting conversations to be had. But currently, we're going to finish going through all of the data that we've collected, and we will bring that and offer that up to present to all of council members and the city enterprise.
And just, again, timeline-wise, are we thinking by the end of the year? Is this early?
My hopes is that we will have it completed prior to December.
Prior to this December of this year? Okay.
December of this year.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I'm not seeing any further comments from my colleagues, so I'll direct the clerk to file that report. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is the report relating to a series of policy reforms proposed for the administration of the city's appointed boards and commissions. And we have our city clerk, Casey Carl, to give that presentation. As he gets that loaded up.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As indicated, my name is Casey Carl. I have the privilege of serving as city clerk. I'm joined today by Assistant City Attorney Andrea Neff, and as the chair indicated, we are here to present a series of proposed policy reforms related to the creation, administration, and operation of the city's appointed boards and commissions, which we often collectively refer to as the city's ABCs. Today, the city has a total of approximately 57 different appointed boards and commissions. These bodies address a variety of municipal topics that range from aging to the arts, from environmental and sustainability issues, housing, workforce development, to public health, and even land use and zoning, to name just a few. In your briefing materials, you should find a copy of the draft ordinance as well as a full report that captures the history and scope of this work that covers more than the past decade. I'd like to start by expressing my appreciation to President Jenkins, who is the primary sponsor of this reform. As noted in the report, this work began in earnest back in 2009 under then Council Vice President Lilligren. It continued in subsequent council terms with leadership from former Council Vice President Glidden, and then last term with then Council Vice President Jenkins, and in the most recent term, of course, as president, taking sponsorship of the ordinance. Ms. Neff and I will be covering the details of the draft ordinance. However, at a conceptual level, I wanted to draw your attention to some of the principles that are expressed in the first section of the ordinance. And what you'll see there is that we've identified the principles of openness, impartiality, competitive recruitment, and equity as a means of guiding the city's work with respect to its boards and commissions. The proposed reforms seek to create a consistent, predictable, and transparent framework within which boards are created, members are appointed, and boards and commissions operate in their public meetings, all done in an alignment with these overarching principles. Before we get into the details, I'd also like to provide some context for today's presentation. Council will recall that this ordinance was reintroduced at the beginning of this term. That was last January. And I noted Council President has assumed authorship, but that this work has been going for more than a decade. When it was reintroduced, this proposal was referred to the Council's Policy and Government Oversight Committee, which has general jurisdiction over the subject of appointed boards and commissions. It has remained in that committee's position since then. Today's presentation then is to provide a level set amongst all the council members in a single public format before that formal proposal advances in the legislative process. After the conclusion of today's presentation, the matter will be before the Policy and Government Oversight Committee, and we would anticipate the committee would set the date for a public hearing on the ordinance in a future cycle. Following that public hearing, then the committee would have the opportunity to perfect the proposal through the regular amendatory process before submitting its recommendation to the full council. And I'll cover more of those timeline issues at the conclusion of the presentation. But I wanted to explain why we are presenting this to the Committee of the Whole today. The city's appointed boards and commissions, or ABCs, play a vital role in community engagement. In my opinion, I think they offer one of the most visible ways for the public to meaningfully participate in the city's decision-making processes. This slide describes some of the ways that are more common for boards and commissions to engage in the work of the city enterprise. So, for example, boards and commissions do assist in formulating public policy and in transforming policy into action plans. They provide a forum to address public interest in community affairs, to build consensus on issues, and to allow the public to address specific proposals. They study a variety of issues referred to them, they review and analyze proposals, and they make recommendations on specific subject matters. And finally, they help to oversee and provide input on the delivery of government projects and programs. No matter how they might be created, no matter what they might be called, all of the city's boards and commissions share a few factors in common. Among of these, all ABCs help to ensure that the public's perspective is incorporated into municipal policymaking and planning functions. The advice and recommendations these bodies provide complement the judgment of the city's governing body and its professional staff. At root, every board, every commission, advisory board, working group, etc., that's created by the mayor and the council is charged with helping the city to plan the future of the community. And that work is highly prioritized by elected officials. Still, with the various forms that these bodies can and do take, combined with many factors that impact their performance, including applicable laws, policies, and political preferences, each board and commission is in many ways unique. And just as no two cities are exactly alike, so too are no two boards exactly the same, even in the same jurisdiction. And those differences can create challenges in terms of how the city can best administer these subordinate bodies in a consistent, predictable, fair, and transparent manner. Over the past 2 decades, the city of Minneapolis has attempted to maximize the value of its boards and commissions, recognizing the benefit these bodies create for engagement, for participation, and for the advancement of core tenets of local democracy. The various initiatives and programs that have been advanced during the past 20 years can very broadly be divided into 2 streams of work. First, programs and initiatives aimed at diversifying representation in ABC memberships so that the members better reflect the multiple communities that make up the city. Second, initiatives intended to streamline and standardize how ABCs are administered, including how we create boards and commissions and how they operate within the city enterprise. While significant attention has been paid to the first stream of work, with successes reported on a regular basis to this body, less attention has been paid to the behind-the-scenes work involved in administering the day-to-day functions of boards and commissions. Therefore, in response to long-standing directives from council, staff is finally bringing forward those proposed policy reforms that are intended to standardize policies, implement uniform procedures, and ensure consistent operations of all of the boards and commissions across the enterprise. In the next section of the presentation, we'll highlight the policy reforms that are included in the draft ordinance. For ease of reference, you'll find a list of all of those proposals starting on page 18 of the full report in your briefing materials. That section is labeled Summary of Reform Proposals, and it includes a numbered list from 1 to 11. I also want to note that in the same report, attached as Exhibit A, is a full copy of the draft ordinance for your reference. Exhibit B provides a list of all of the city's existing boards and commissions and how the proposed classification system would impact them. And then finally, Exhibit C lists all of our existing bodies that would be exempt from those policy reforms. So this slide then summarizes all of our reforms into some very large categories. Ms. Neff is going to go over each of these in a bit more detail in just a minute. Before I turn the podium over to her, I wanted to take a moment to describe these in very general terms. First and foremost, the centerpiece of our policy reforms is the creation of a classification system for boards and commissions. This proposed classification system is important so that the city's elected policymakers can more discreetly create, direct, and control the work of specific boards and commissions by type, and to adopt policies that would apply to boards and commissions according to their classification. Currently, Minneapolis does not have a classification for boards and commissions. So as a result, any policies related to boards and commissions must either apply generally to all of our boards and commissions equally, or a policy must be specifically tailored to address the needs of a single body of the city's 57 different boards and commissions. The proposed classification system would simplify policymaking with respect to the boards and commissions and enable them to be placed into a category determined by a combination of factors. These factors include the following: the source of the body's authority, meaning the legal authority under which it's created, whether that's a state law, the city charter, or an official act of the mayor and council. 2, the body's mandate or its primary purpose, the reason for its existence and what it is intended to achieve. 3, the scope of authority that's delegated to and exercised by the body. And finally, 4th, the general functions or responsibilities of the body. The proposed ordinance also reaffirms the city's longstanding commitment to its open appointments policy, which was first adopted in 1976, and clarifies those procedures and also reaffirms the roles and responsibilities of council and mayor as the city's appointing authorities. The proposed ordinance also establishes service expectations and service restrictions for individuals appointed to boards and commissions. These expectations and restrictions are intended together to reinforce the premise that the ability to serve and contribute to the city's decision-making requires opportunity. So these service expectations and restrictions are intended to ensure that those opportunities are available for the broadest section of the community as possible. The ordinance also designates the city clerk as the executive secretary to all boards and commissions unless provided otherwise by some applicable law. This allows the city clerk to set and enforce consistent standards for the operation of boards and commissions, the conduct of meetings, regardless of classification, and similar functions. The ordinance provides for a standard set of bylaws and meeting rules that could be customized as necessary with pre-approval from the council. And finally, in recognition for the need for greater alignment between enterprise goals and priorities that are set by the mayor and council, the proposed ordinance would require that certain ABCs submit annual work plans to identify the work that's aligned with city goals and priorities, as well as a year-end report detailing their accomplishments against those goals. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Assistant City Attorney Neff, as I said, and invite her to provide a more detailed summary of the specific provisions in the draft ordinance. And again, as she moves through her presentation, a copy of that full draft ordinance is included for your reference under Exhibit A. Ms. Neff.
Before you do, Clerk Carl, we have a question or comment from Councilmember Jenkins.
Yeah, no, I just, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a few comments before we hear from Ms. Neff. I want to thank Clerk Carl for your persistence and diligence in this matter, which you noted it has been through multiple terms on the council. You mentioned two of my former bosses, and I worked on these issues as a policy aide. I do want to say that throughout all this time, we have made several improvements to the process, including diversifying boards and commissions, which was a very sore point prior to this work. Also, we have coordinated the appointment times and the application times. You know, in prior years, all the boards and commissions would have different application processes, et cetera, and we've sort of systematized that. And so this is a culmination of many years of work, but also many years of improvement to this process as well. And this will be probably not the final step, because process improvement has to be continuous. However, it would be a very important aspect to the improvement of our boards and commissions, and including city residents in the decision-making of its city government. So again, thank you for your persistence, and I will leave it to the chair to welcome Ms. Neff.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Neff. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Palmisano. Just quick, Clerk Carl, are there currently guidelines that are established for defining what inactive means in terms of that clause of sunsetting, inactive ABCs?
Through the chair, Councilmember Wansley, we don't have an official definition of an inactive board. Within LIMS, we do have a section of inactive boards, meaning boards that haven't met. Either they have no members, they don't have enough members to form a quorum, they haven't had meetings, and so we've moved them into a category of inactive. One of the issues for us then would be cleaning up and bringing back, under the framework of this ordinance, questions about what do we do with those boards that haven't been meeting or aren't meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Palmisano, council members, my name is Assistant City Attorney Andrea Neff, and I'm here to give you a brief overview of the ordinance language that's before you in this proposed ABC reform ordinance. First, attending to sections 1020 and 1040, these address ABC creation and classification. Classification system is the heart of this proposed reform ordinance. Section 1020 establishes a 5-tier classification system that will group our existing boards and commissions into 5 groups generally based upon their enabling legislation, their purpose, their level of authority. And that will enable us going forward to have policies that apply to certain types of groups, but not to all groups or not to other groups. As an example of that one tier of our proposed classification system is the Special Service District Boards, which, as many of you likely know, operate quite differently from many of our other groups, such as the Planning Commission or the Civil Rights Commission. And so these groups will be placed into different tiers, and that will enable us to have more consistency and policies that apply to specific types of groups going forward. So that really does form the heart of this, this beginning of more reforms that will make our internal processes more streamlined in the future. And if you are curious about how any particular group is classified into this 5-tier system, as Clerk Carl referenced, there is a reform ordinance report that was attached to the materials for this meeting. Toward the end, in Exhibit B, it lists each of our current boards and commissions and how they would be classified into the tier system. Going forward, part of this ordinance that we're proposing will then begin applying that tier system, because the majority of those reforms will apply immediately to tiers 3 and 4, some also to tier 2, because these things apply differently to different types of bodies. In section 1040, that addresses the creation of new ABCs, and it provides several different things, including that before the creation of a new body, the clerk will bring forward a report that will detail the need for the body, how it may interface or interact with responsibilities already given to other existing bodies, the resource requirements that would be needed to staff a new body, and so forth, so that this body can see, upon creating a new group, how that interfaces with current work, and make that have full information before making the decision to create a new ABC. The ordinance also identifies the details that will be required to create a new ABC, including listing its purpose, its authority, what topics it is dedicated to, with some specificity, and that the purpose of giving each group a specific type of authority is so that we know that what they're doing and they're not all doing the same thing, or, it will give us a level of stability that we have not previously had in the creation of our ABCs. The ordinance also provides that there will be a regular review process every 3 years where information is brought before the City Council to advise you as to what these groups are doing, whether they're continuing to provide value to the city. If not, what adjustments might be made so that they can continue to be valuable to the city and to achieve your objectives. And then finally, to Councilmember Wansley's previous question, it does provide for automatic sunsetting of ABCs when those groups are not otherwise required by law and they haven't convened a meeting for 24 months. So this is not going to automatically get rid of anything that is continuing, but merely provides a method of us cleaning up the books, no longer having groups that just are no longer meeting or no longer interested in meeting. Moving on to several additional sections of the ordinance, specifically 1050 through 1080. These do address ABC recruitment and appointment. And section 1050 will look very familiar to this group, as it is our open appointments process, very, very similar to what currently exists in chapter 14.180. So the open appointments process is not going away. It is being picked up and moved from chapter 14 to chapter 10. and those that currently use this process will continue to do so. You'll see that it remains substantively unchanged in terms of how we will do those appointments. Additionally, under this new ordinance, appointments will be made for consistent, defined terms, which are tracked to the seats for each body and not to the individual that holds that seat. And this provides for consistency when the membership changes. The term isn't constantly changing with the individual. These sections also provide for certain onboarding and orientation requirements. Following appointment, but prior to beginning work on the ABC, each member must complete orientation, including ethics education, which is currently required, but often not attended to immediately, and this will provide that it must be attended to before service on the Board or Commission. Signing an oath of office, again, required by state law, but this provides consistency and clarity that it will happen right away. And then signing a participant agreement to ensure that everyone is on the same page about our expectations of our Board and Commission members. For those who have not fulfilled those requirements within 90 days of the appointment, the ordinance provides that that seat will be deemed vacant and a new person can be appointed. Similarly, sections 1050 through 1080 also provide for certain service restrictions, and these are intended to maximize the opportunity for community participation by having the widest number of seats open for our community members. The restrictions include that members may not serve concurrently on 2 or more ABCs to which this section applies. They may not serve for more than 8 consecutive years on the same group. They cannot serve concurrently on the same group with a member of their family, a close familial relationship under our ethics code. Members who are seeking elective office must take leave of absence while they campaign. And finally, no city elected officials or current members of our staff can hold seats on a body unless otherwise required by law, as there are a couple situations where the law requires that the seat be held by a current city council member, for example. And this does not mean that our staff won't be involved in any way. Instead, what it means is those voting seats are reserved for members of the community, and that it is anticipated that the staff members would continue to be assigned as part of their duties to attend meetings, to provide logistical support, and so on and so forth, but without taking a seat on the group away from the community members. Section 10100 does establish some requirements for consistency of ABC meetings. Where this is applicable, ABCs will abide by a consistent set of bylaws and rules, which will be brought before the City Council for approval before they apply. Now, any group to which this section applies, which has a business need to have an exception from those rules, could then bring a request for an exception also before this body to say, hey, this is why this section doesn't work for us. Could our rules be slightly different in this regard? But absent making that case to the City Council for why their rules should be different, the ABCs to which this section applies would follow a standard set of rules, again, for consistency of meetings, of public experience, and so forth. This section also provides that, as is currently the case, ABCs will adopt a schedule of regular meetings, which will be posted online so that the public is fully informed of where and when they're meeting. Special meetings are permitted with 3 days public notice. And then finally, similar to requirements that we currently have, ABC meetings must be open to the public, they must be conducted in government-owned buildings, and the facilities in which they're located must be ADA compliant. Again, because these are public meetings. We want the public to be fully able to attend and participate. Ordinance Section 1090 designates the city clerk as the executive secretary for ABCs unless otherwise provided by law in that enabling legislation for the body. And in that capacity, the city clerk is responsible for administering the process of the open appointments. Obviously, you are the appointing authorities along with the mayor's office, but the process is to be overseen by the clerk. The clerk will also, as the executive secretary, maintain official rosters, ensure that required notices and meetings notices of meetings are given, oversee record keeping, such as making sure that there are minutes, making sure that agendas are posted, and otherwise making sure that records are kept as required by law. Additionally, the clerk, as executive secretary, will plan and conduct the ABC orientation program and provide operational support to the staff. And this, of course, is without exclusion to the staff supporting each body, providing additional training, which it's anticipated that that would continue occurring and would be highly encouraged, but this will ensure that there's a minimum initial level of education for each new ABC member or returning ABC member about what the roles of boards and commissions are. And then finally, the ordinance sections 1090 and 10110 provide for the city council and the mayor's office to receive far more regular reports than has been currently the practice. To ensure that each of these bodies is aligning itself with city goals and priorities, each group will be required to create an annual work plan for what they're planning to work on in the next year and provide an annual report at the end of the year, giving information to this body and to the mayor's office about what they have accomplished. And the reports will be coordinated and standardized by the city clerk and brought forward to this body on a regular basis. I'm going to turn it back to Clerk Carl to talk about next steps, but of course I'd be more than happy to stand for questions about any specifics of the ordinance, either now or at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. My speaker management still isn't working, but I see Councilmember Payne is in queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the provisions named in your presentation is around the requirement to host a meeting at a city-owned property. I have two questions, one specific to that, but they're related questions. When I've talked to some of the members of ABCs, as they've been kind of anticipating some of these changes, one of the things they've pretty consistently expressed is the desire to make their meetings more accessible. One of their theories of accessibility beyond ADA compliance is where the meetings are held, and they would like the opportunity to host those meetings in community on occasion. And I'm concerned about whether or not the language, and I haven't gotten a chance to read fully the language, if that excludes that opportunity or if there might be a provision for an exception given some parameters. But the other piece to that as well, which might be less of a ordinance language conversation and more of a budget conversation, but it could be a number of things, but the ability to participate remotely or in a hybrid setting, and I know that part of that is from like a facilities AV equipment capacity perspective, but I'm wondering if, what I don't want to do is have the ordinance language exclude those future possibilities, whether it's a hybrid option or a meeting in community that is ADA compliant.
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember, thanks for those questions. I'll address them separately because I think you've asked two separate but related questions. First, as to the feedback that ABC staffers and members would like to meet other than in City Hall, for example, we have expanded the language of the ordinance from initial drafts, which said that meetings would take place in city-owned facilities, and it now reads that they will take place in government-owned or leased facilities. And that opens things up in a couple different possible ways while still maintaining control of making sure our meetings are in appropriate places. First, government-owned would expand this to including things like the libraries or the schools, obviously assuming that they are amenable to that. So that means that there are locations, potential locations throughout the city, not just downtown. Additionally, the option of a leased space, it would require work on the part of staff, but does open up the possibility that if a suitable space was found and was not government owned, that it could be leased for regular meetings, if that was the desire of the staff working in conjunction with the facilities staff to do that. So it does open up options while maintaining the city's ability to control the spaces and make sure that they're suitable and not just chosen in an ad hoc fashion. So I hope that answers that first question. I'll jump to the second one. Regarding either hybrid or remote meetings, the ordinance does provide that that meetings will be held in a physical space, and that is to make sure that the public can participate. So it does rule out the possibility of the fully remote meeting where there would be, just a bunch of members gathered on Teams, but no opportunity for the public. As for hybrid, it does not rule that in or out in the future. There obviously are technology and budget issues as well as open meeting law issues that would have to be overcome, but that's neither in nor out based upon this ordinance. That's something that can evolve in the future.
That's really helpful, and I think the government-owned or leased definitely adds some flexibility. I have an appetite for approved locations, right? So you can't ad hoc just choose, hey, we want to meet at this location, but it may be beneficial for us to have some kind of language to accommodate a process where we would at least have to approve a location prior to being utilized, even if it's not government-owned or leased. But that's just my feedback. But thank you.
Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Thanks so much for the presentation. And I think, though, you actually perhaps answered some of my questions, because some of the concerns I have Ward 11 residents, and obviously I know we all do, on the committees on people with disabilities and the committees on aging, and both have reached out to me in kind of an understanding of the accessibility for themselves. So I think opening this up to government-owned buildings will hopefully help in that, in some of the requirements and questions that they had. So just want to say thank you for being flexible and looking into that as well.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else in queue. Is anyone else wanting to speak on this item? I do want to mention that, as was said, I'm sorry, Councilmember Johnson.
Madam Chair, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask, but I'd like to be added as a co-author. And I really appreciate all of the work on this. I know we have some more slides with next steps, so I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but just gonna.
Yeah, I will at the end.
All right, thanks.
There are a number of people that have asked to add their names as co-authors, and we'll go through that. Did you want to go through next steps at this point in time?
I would turn that over to Clerk Carl to talk about next steps.
Clerk Carl.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be as quick as I can. So on this slide, we're showing the first of next steps. Today's presentation was the first step. We have had briefings, of course, with policymakers, department leaders, and ABC staff over the past several months. But as I said, we wanted to have this public briefing so that the committee had a level set as we get ready with all 13 council members before the proposal advances in the legislative process. As shown on this slide, the next formal action is for the Policy and Government Oversight Committee to set the date for a public hearing. This timeline assumes that the setting of that public hearing could happen at the POGO Committee's next meeting, which is October 2nd. Again, that's just setting the date for the public hearing. It could mean the soonest the public hearing could be conducted would be in the following cycle, which would be on October 16th. Following the close of the public hearing, the POGO committee would have the chance, as I mentioned, to perfect the draft ordinance through the amendment process and forward its report with recommendations to the full council. The soonest that the city council would then be able to take up the draft ordinance as reported from the POGO committee would be at its regular meeting on October 19th. The ordinance has been drafted to delay the effective date, should it be adopted, until July 31st of 2024. So unlike other ordinances, we've built in a 6-month approximate delay period. The reason that's important to us, shown on this slide, is that within the adoptive date and the effective date next July, staff needs to complete several actions, some of which are shown here. That includes developing templates for ordinances and resolutions to create new ABCs that are standardized according to those requirements that Ms. Neff mentioned, drafting new resolutions to reestablish our existing advisory boards classified in Tier 3, designing and implementing a new and improved ABC orientation program, reviewing, updating, and delivering training to our board and commission staff to support this transition under the new policy. And then finally, of course, future phases to plan for beyond 2024 that we would consider, shown on this slide. So the work over this past decade, as the council president mentioned, is cumulative. We have made incremental processes to improve the administration of boards and commissions. This work really moves us significantly forward in time, but there are additional future phases we would anticipate to continue with once this piece is done. And so with that, it completes our prepared presentation. Happy to stand for any final questions or comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Rainville, I missed you before.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I simply wanted to be added as author. I send my thanks to both the clerk and attorney. You've done great work, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, as Clerk Carl mentioned, beginning in 2009 with the work of Councilmember Robert Lilligren, and then following forward with Council Vice President Glidden, and then Council President Jenkins. President Jenkins is the through line on all of this work. Clerk Carl, we appreciate your work and efforts and support. We appreciate this being a place we can discuss this in public and hopefully level set for the many people who maybe sit on these boards and commissions and are looking for more information. This is that place to get that information. I do have a number of people who have let me know they too would like to co-author this important revision of how we ask for formalized public participation in these boards and commissions. And those authors include Councilmember Vita, Rainville, Ellison, Johnson, Goodman, and myself. I've just given those over to the clerk in a Teams message. And that's what I've got. Are there other questions or comments or anybody that wants to speak?
Council Vice President, just before I close, I would also like to just point out, I mentioned at the beginning of my comments, there are 2 streams that run in parallel for boards and commission reform, one of which deals with the diversification of memberships. That scope of work, which has really been the primary focus of the enterprise, continues to this day with an every other year survey, voluntary demographic survey by members, the results of which are brought forward and reported from the Neighborhood and Community Relations Department. I know that they are preparing to bring forward their report from data collected last year in 2022. And so I just wanted to put it in the collective conscience of this group that that report will be coming forward, I believe, to the Public Health and Safety Committee soon. And would sort of tease out that I think that report will show continuing improvement over the last 2 decades, as well as both policymakers and staff work to ensure that our applicant pools meet the demographics of the community and reflect the community, and that the appointments made by the mayor and the council are more and more matching those priority factors that have been identified. So stay tuned for the report from the Neighborhood and Community Relations Department about that scope of work, which is related to all of our work on boards and commissions.
Thank you. I'll give Council President Jenkins the last word.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I just wanted to reiterate my appreciation to staff and Clerk Carl and his team, Assistant City Attorney Neff, for the work put forward. Also want to appreciate and welcome my colleagues as co-authors on this. It shows that there is broad support for this ordinance and change, and so welcome all of you to be co-authors on this important work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll direct the clerk to please file that report, and I'll move to refer this item to the Policy, Government, and Oversight Committee for the purpose of setting a public hearing. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries, and this item has been referred to the next Policy, Government, and Oversight Committee, which is October 2nd, for the purpose of setting a public hearing. Moving on to item number 5. Item 5 is an update relating to the former 3rd Precinct building at 3000 Minnehaha Avenue, and I will invite Alexander Cato from Public Works to give us that presentation. Welcome, Mr. Cato.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Cato. I'm in the Office of Public Service, but formerly was in Public Works. Thank you for having me, Chair Palmisano, Vice Chair Chavez, Council President Jenkins, and the Committee of the Whole Council. I am here today to give this presentation for this work because over 3 years ago, former City of Minneapolis staff were responsible for the murder of George Floyd. And after his murder, the 3rd Precinct, former building at 3000 Minnehaha, experienced extensive fire damage. The building is still structurally sound, but 3rd Precinct officers have been operating out of different locations for over 3 years now. Earlier this spring, I was involved in an engagement effort with other departments of the city, as well as a consulting firm, DeYoung Consulting, to explore 2 different precinct options. We presented a report at Committee of the Whole on July 18th. 10 days later, you all as a city body, as a city council body, voted 12-1 to eliminate any further police use at the 3000 Minnehaha building. And so what I'm presenting to you today are some of the next steps forward at that building, with the understanding that it will not be used in perpetuity for police use. So there's a few items that are occurring in 2023 as well as a few in 2024. In 2023, so in Q3 right now, Finance and Property Services is exploring and confirming funding to clean up the 3000 Minnehaha building. I'll talk to that further in the next slide. They're also starting a property disposition process to assess what city uses could be utilized at that facility. It's still a city-owned building. And then on my side with the Office of Public Service, we're working with DeYoung Consulting for a project timeline for phase 2 engagement, as well as developing a work group for the building with community members. In 2024, Finance and Property Services is projecting a cleanup of the site, and then we in the Office of Public Service will be conducting community engagement with DeYoung Consulting. So from a Finance and Property Services standpoint, they are doing a property disposition analysis process that is ongoing and should be concluded towards the end of this month. And that basically explores what other city services could be utilized at that building other than police use. As you all are aware, there's a variety of services that the city conducts, a variety of facilities and staff. And so we're exploring what could those uses be. That is anticipated to conclude later this month. They're also in the process of planning for a cleanup of the site. So that would remove the boarded up windows, eventually remove the barriers, the fencing, et cetera, and just improve the visibility of that site. We still have no plans for what would be actually put within that building, and that's what this future engagement is about. but at least from a visibility community standpoint, we would be removing a lot of the barbed wire and things like that. From the Office of Public Service side, we are under contract. We have a contract with DeYoung Consulting. They did the phase 1 engagement. They were here and presented to you all with me in July of this year. And we're developing a work group, and that work group would be exploring other community uses of the site, and they would be tasked with presenting a recommendation around those uses. So we're exploring the city uses of the site, and then in future engagement with the community uses of the site could be in some type of hybrid model. It's still in the very early phases of forming that work group. We're hoping to have that work group formed by the end of this year, have that work group starting to meet, having focus groups, and then ultimately community meetings later next year, and then reaching recommendations around how to use that site moving forward. This is really just a preliminary update. That was all I had, and I'll open it up for any questions from the committee.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there questions from committee members? Council President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that presentation and overview. I'm just curious, when will the work to take down the fencing begin? Fencing, the window boarded, and
it would be in spring of 2024. We don't have a definitive timeline for that yet, but we're estimating next spring.
and then will we have a plan for security for a vacant building? I mean, vacant buildings tend to be targeted for all kinds of activities, including occupation.
Yeah, I'll pull up someone from Finance and Property Services to speak through that. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Welcome, Director O'Brien.
Thank you. So once the facility has windows restored, we'll be able to use cameras and monitor it, much like we do with the rest of our properties. And we will do wellness checks, mobile wellness checks while it's that way.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else in queue or further discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please file that report. Colleagues, we have a request for a closed session today, but before we move to that, I'd like to take up the reports of committees on matters to be considered by the full council this Thursday. I understand some of us are going to need to leave in the next hour for other commitments. So with that, we'll start with the Budget Committee, chaired by Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Budget Committee will be bringing forward one item that it will be recommending for approval, which is amending the 2023 General Appropriation Resolution to transfer $1 million from the contingency account to the Community Planning and Economic Development Department for the pre-development and development of Aviva Villages South project, subject to conditions. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Next is the Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee, chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
We have 12 items. Read the reports.
All right, next we have the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, chaired by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We have one item, which is the passage of a resolution approving the state capital investment bill budget requests.
Thank you. Next, we have the Policy and Government Oversight Committee, chaired by Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Policy and Government Oversight Committee is bringing forward 29 items for approval. Can I do with what Councilmember Goodman just did and tell people to read it?
If
I
you
will
wanna
read it
make
at the
that
full
the
council
norm.
meeting.
Yeah.
It's what happens when you run for 2 hours and have another hour.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. We have been here a long time. So we have 29 items. We went over them. I'll stand for any questions, and I will read the full report at council meeting.
Thank you. Those are listed on the published meeting minutes from that meeting, I believe, by now. Public Health and Safety Committee by Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 5 items. Item 1 is authorizing an increase to the contract with the Minnesota State Patrol to provide law enforcement and public safety services to the police department. Item 2 is accepting an additional grant from the Minnesota Department of Health for school-based clinics. Item 3 is authorizing the submittal of a grant to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources for community forestry. Item 4 is authorizing a host site agreement with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for Minnesota Green Corps program members. And item 5 is accepting the Hennepin County 2023 Youth Art and Music Grant for an art showcase. I'll move approval of these items. I'll stand for any questions.
Right. Thank you. Last but not least, Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, chaired by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got 6 items. The first 2 are special service districts approvals. The third is uniform assessment rates. The fourth is a cooperative agreement over multimodal improvements along Hennepin Ave and First Ave Northeast. The fifth is a cooperative agreement over University Ave and 4th Street Southeast. And the that was item number 5. And the 6th item is the Hennepin Avenue South Street reconstruction from Lake Street to Douglas Avenue. Project designation, cost agreement, setting a public hearing, and a MnDOT agreement.
Thank you. We'll now consider the request for a closed session, which is for one litigation matter as listed on the agenda. Before I move to close the meeting, I'll recognize our city attorney to provide the legal basis for that requested closed session.
Madam Chair, council members, the next item on the agenda is the case of State of Minnesota by Smart Growth Minneapolis et al. Versus City of Minneapolis. This case is in active litigation. Your lawyers wish to discuss with the council litigation strategy. Accordingly, under Minnesota Open Meeting Law, Minnesota State Statutes, Section 13D05, Subdivision 3B, the council may, upon a proper motion, close the meeting for the purposes of attorney-client communication. In considering the motion, the council should weigh the right of the public to know what its government is doing against the need of the city to preserve the confidentiality of its discussions with its attorneys.
Thank you. So I will move that our public meeting be closed as authorized under the provisions of open meeting law, specifically Minnesota statutes, section 13D.05, subdivision 3B, for the purpose of discussing the litigation matter of State of Minnesota by Smart Growth Minneapolis et al. Versus City of Minneapolis. May I have a second to that motion? Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll close the public portion of our meeting and convene in closed session for the viewing public. I want to note the broadcast of this will continue and the council will reconvene in public after we've concluded that closed session. Thank you. All right, thanks, everybody. The time is now 4:24, and the Committee of the Whole is reconvened in open session following our closed session. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll and verify a quorum.
Councilmember Payne is absent. Wansley.
Present.
Rainville is absent. Vitaw is absent. Ellison.
Here.
Osman is absent. Goodman is absent. President Jenkins.
Present.
Chugtai.
Present.
Koski.
Present.
Johnson is absent. Vice Chair Chavez.
Present.
Chair Palmisano.
Present.
We have 7 members present.
Thank you. There are no motions coming out of closed session today, and we've concluded all business to come before committee. So hearing no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.